Don't really need Stuart here unless we have some specific questions in regards to the bylaw. So we'll wait for Anne-Marie to come back. She was going where? You want to run and get her? Yeah. Run, Forrest, run. Thanks.
I guess I can quickly report on the IDP. The city's looking at going through that and redoing it quite intensively, I guess, with the fact that regionalization is no longer on the table. They have a different interest, so I don't know at what time frame. We do have an IDP in place with them, so that's not an issue, but we did pay Dylan, for a chunk of what they've done so far, and Dylan has spent a lot of time meeting with the city, so I hope that we don't have additional cost in order to redo it. But that's sort of the update on where the IDPs with them. ICF wise, we've met with Duchess, and they're taking theirs back to their council. Rosemary, we haven't touched on with Sharon. She was at the Duchess meeting with Yvonne and I, so she is familiar with the arrangements. I provided them all the ICF from Bassano, so they have that. The city, no idea. Supposed to be in by March 30th, I guess, so we'll see. Maybe we'll get on to it March 15th or something, see if we can hammer it out.
Thanks, Kevin.
Just being facetious.
So
I'm sure we'll hear from them.
Call this back to order, and we're going to deal with the fire stuff. Lane's confident that we don't necessarily need Stuart unless we have some specific questions in the bylaw. And anyways, go ahead, Lane. 7.3.
So item 7.3 is the County Fire Bylaw 1958-19. First reading was given to that bylaw. We went out to the public with it and also reviewed details of the proposed bylaw with the fire chiefs during their mutual aid meeting. A couple of minor revisions have been suggested to it and have been included in the bylaw that is before you. They are very minor in nature. Unless council has some concerns with the bylaw itself, you would be in a position to go ahead with second and third reading.
Questions? Wayne.
I have talked to one county ratepayer, and they have a concern about the burning barrels being permitted. And now that she got me thinking about it, and we don't permit the burning pits for recreation and everything, but we want to permit burning barrels, and I don't see the point, because first of all, if we do it, quite a few people will not get it done, won't even know about it, and then we haven't got the personnel to enforce it. We're not going to go check everybody's yard and see if they've got a permitted burning barrel. And I can't say we've had many issues with burning barrels. It's just, I think, something we really don't have to have a law for, that really is not going to do anything, and we're not going to enforce it.
Anne-Marie.
I think I would be in favor of banning burning barrels altogether.
Yeah, but it's not going to be enforced.
Well, and I wouldn't favor banning them, but I think it's important that we know what we have out there, and it's a responsibility of of a landowner to, if they have a burning barrel. I mean, they're a permanent permit, so they don't have to come back in for renewal.
No, every 2 years.
2 years? Oh, sorry, I misread that then. Apologies. Kelly?
The one thing about they call it an incinerator, do they not, rather than a barrel? And that's not defined in the bylaw.
The burning barrel, they have it.
Is there a definition? I didn't.
Incinerator, I think. Yeah.
Incinerator fire shall mean. Nowhere in the bylaw does it refer to a barrel, though, does it?
No, it does refer to burning barrels, but it doesn't
Okay.
give a definition for
Then
it.
pardon?
I don't know, I know it's ancient history, but the fire way back that burnt half of southern Alberta was out of a burning barrel. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that couldn't happen again, because it's the person that's lighting it that ultimately has the provided but I do think there has to be an awareness of what is out there and the responsibilities that go along with that. So I'm in favor of having burning barrels permitted. Final.
Well, I agree with you, Brian, on the fact that it's just an awareness that we need to be careful with these because there are problems. And I'm with Anne Marie, to be honest with you. I would go all the way and ban them, but I know it wouldn't get away with that. Because it isn't just the fact that there are fires, but there is also toxic smoke that we're all subjected to when you drive by them, and I am one that is not very. I'm very much not in favor of having to breathe somebody else's garbage.
Wayne.
Well, I agree with Lionel on not breathing other people's garbage, but I breathed it quite a bit this morning coming in, and it was from Lakeside's feedlot. But I'm not going to put up and ban or their feedlot. My problem here is we're not going to. First of all, if we put a 2-year limit on a permit, they're going to, maybe some people will come in and they'll get the permit for the first 2 years, and then after 2 years, well, they won't even think about it. They just keep using it. So I think it's really going to be serving no purpose. It's just going to be more paperwork for the county to do. And if we try and enforce it, that's going to be more work for our employees to do. So it's just going to cost money and really solve no problem.
So do you have specific questions for Stuart before we ask for a motion on this? Because that's our next step. Go ahead, Lane.
Stuart is on his way, so he should be here shortly. We want to have him respond to the questions that have been raised.
Okay. Tracy.
My question, and I'm not sure if I missed it, they talk about when there's a fire ban that recreation fire pits are banned. Is it the use of a burning pit included in that too, that they're banned as well if there's a fire ban?
Yeah, during a ban period, there is no open flames of any kind.
So why don't... No, wait, that's your question, Trace.
I was just wanting to make sure that was clearly defined in our bylaw, though, too, because wasn't it in the RFD where we, just let me bring it up here. The other end. Yeah, because it's got in here, the other edit change is to specifically reference that recreational fire pits are included on the list of banned fires during a fire ban period. So I was just wanting to make sure that burning barrels were in that Article 2712 as well.
Yes, and if you look at, it's on page 8 of the bylaw, section 27.1C, it specifically references what is allowed or not allowed during a burning ban. So a fire ban, no fires are allowed, including recreational fire pits, fireworks, exploding targets, burning barrels, charcoal briquettes, wood pellet-based fully contained smokers, and sky lanterns. So those are examples of items that cannot be burned during a ban period.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. I just hadn't seen that. Or missed it.
Kelly?
My question is item 10, 10.6. It lists the fire department's phone number. So as we know, our rural departments are not manned. So I wonder the need for that. We are talking, we haven't gone this route, but we have had discussions about the relevancy of land-based lines in departments. So I just posed that, what would be the purpose for that?
So this is information that they're wanting to include in the fire permit. Now, when someone is burning, if the fire gets out of control, it's always call 911. They would never be expected to call the fire department or staff members directly. The suggestion to include that information in the fire permit is so that if they've got any questions about should I burn, shouldn't I, anything about the permit itself before they ignite the fire, that's when they can actually give the individuals a call and have that conversation. I understand what you're saying about the fire department phone number. Maybe it should be referencing a phone number for a representative of the fire department.
So can we do 7.4, Municipal Emergency Management Plan, have a discussion on that?
So again, this was another bylaw that was given first reading by council. It was also reviewed with the fire chiefs, and again, we're suggesting council would be in a position to give second and third reading to the bylaw as amended. There really wasn't too much in the way of changes that were made to this one. What were some of the highlights here? In section 8, one of the questions that did come up during or immediately after the first reading of this bylaw that was raised by a member of council was whether or not we should have provisions in the bylaw for the reeve to also be a member of the Emergency Management Agency. As it was initially presented to council, that provision was not included. We did clarify this with Alberta Emergency Management staff, and they have indicated that there would be no problem with having that linkage in place, and so we have made that change within the text of the bylaw. The thing to note that there is two different bodies. One of them is going to be the Emergency Advisory Committee, and then there is the Emergency Management Agency. They have a separate purpose, but there is an opportunity for members, some members, to be involved in both of those groups within the bylaw.
Because of the nature of number 8, and it says during emergencies, and would it be appropriate to just add to that item you were just talking about, the reeve or designate? Just in the event that perhaps incident you're talking about is happening, it just gives the reeve of the, if they're not available at that particular time, that somebody else that she or he designates that is available could be sit in that seat.
That word, or those words can certainly be included, so it would read, Article 8, Q would read the reeve or designate of the County of Newell.
Okay, thanks. Stuart, please join us. We sort of jumped into this because we're waiting for lunch, and we thought maybe you and your fire people all ate it before they got here, so got here and hijacked the van. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So we're at, we talked a little bit about 7.3. We're on 7.4 right now, the emergency management plan. So let's finish up with that and then go back to the fire bylaw, okay? So I don't know if you have any other comments in addition to what Lane has talked about.
Yeah, I don't think I do. I think Lane probably has captured most of it. I come in at the tail end of that conversation, but I'm sure he's got.
Does council have any questions for Stuart or Lane? If not, I'd entertain a motion for second reading for 741, the municipal emergency management bylaw. Kelly makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And third reading. Clarence. Clarence makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, 7.3. There was some questions in regards to having burning barrels included, and if you want to, I don't know if you want to, Wayne, you led that, so if you want to have some more, maybe refresh your statements with Stuart so he can provide some feedback.
Yeah, in the bylaw, it goes that you want to have them permitted and renewed every 2 years. Whereas recreational fires are not permitted and they're allowed under the regulations. Of course, in a fire ban or something, nothing goes. My problem is that I don't believe that we really need to permit, and I've talked to ratepayers who don't want to see them permitted. And I haven't, if you got recreational fires that aren't permitted and burning barrels are, I just see not necessary. And it's more paperwork, and there's no way you guys can enforce that. You can't go around to every yard and check to see if they've got a burning barrel and if it's permitted or not. So I just think it's not worthwhile putting in.
Okay, through the chair, Reef, thank you. It's a really good point. How do we police if we do permit? My original thought, and this is going back when Keith and I were working on this bylaw together, we thought if we knew where the burn barrels were within the community, I think that's why we were thinking of doing the permitting process. And if it was done, then we would be able to know where they are, and then every second year we would know that they still are using them or not using them within the county. So it gives us a little better idea of what's burning there. A pleasure fire pit is of course set out with the rules and regulations that are in the bylaw there of clean burning wood and no leaves and stuff like that, where an incinerator barrel is a little bit different because that can burn, still has to burn clean products or environmentally friendly products, but that allows more for leaves and stuff like that. So I think degradation of the burning barrels eventually would break down and stuff like that. So I guess it would be not necessarily a way to police, but just to make sure that what's in place is safe to be used. Those were the kind of rationales that I was thinking of. I can't speak for Keith, but that's what I was thinking.
Okay. Thanks, Stuart. Do you have any other questions? No. Any other for council? Ellen and then Kelly.
But Stuart, you're not going to check them, right? You're not going to check them and see if there is a hole in it or, it has the proper top on it, screen and everything?
Yeah, I don't think we have time to do something like that. And again, I had a thought that if they were going to permit a burning barrel in today's day and age, would they be able to send a picture in when they do the permit so that we'd be able to see it, rather than going out to police it, and then it would be a 2-second look at it and say, yeah, the barrel looks good, yes, we have a retention screen on top of it, and we're fine with permitting that barrel and making sure that it is there. That was kind of a thought process that I had for that type of thing. And in a lot of ways, we don't permit pleasure pits, but if we could have something like that to make sure that people have the proper allowances for clearance around their pleasure pits and stuff like that, that would be a great idea. But of course, that's not included in the bylaw that they have to do that, so there's nothing saying they have to do that.
Thank you. Kelly?
And then my question, Stuart, I'm in favor of the bylaw, by the way. My question was, though, around the phone number for the fire department being listed on the permit. We've had conversations around the need for the landline, where in our rural municipalities, we don't have anybody answering that phone. So it's going to go to an answering machine. Is that sufficient?
I don't believe it is sufficient. I know that some of the meetings that I've been involved with, that those phone calls are made to our fire chiefs or our guardians' cell numbers, so that they can know what's burning and when it's burning in the areas. At the end of the day, you make a good point. If there's no landlines around to phone, and for instance, if a fire permit person phones in and says that they're about to burn today and we'll have it out by night, but then somebody doesn't go into the office and check that message until 4:30 in the afternoon, and maybe it was a day where the wind was over 15 kilometers an hour, they could have stopped it quicker. So you make a good point with that, but I think if our fire guardians are willing to have their cell phones being used as that kind of thing, well, then I think that's a great thing. I also had a thought when there were some conversations in Bizano on burning and stuff like that, and I made the offer that they could always phone myself to see how things are going. Now, unfortunately, I don't know exactly how the wind's blowing in Bizano compared to Brooks, because within our county, the wind changes direction and speeds all over the place. So that makes it a little more difficult as well, but it is a way.
So maybe we could make a small edit and say the local fire guardian's phone number?
Lane?
Yeah, Ariana just handed me a note here, has referred back to the actual permit itself, and it's the divisional fire chief's contact phone number that is listed on the fire permit. So we can make that clarification as to the actual contact phone number that's referenced.
Okay. So the fact that there's a phone number there, a contact person, is that sufficient? Okay. Any other questions? Hubie?
Stuart, is there a setback for recreational fire pits and burning barrels to be away from fences or trees or houses?
Yeah, absolutely. There is. Within that bylaw, I do believe it has a set diagram of being 10 feet away from any combustibles, which would be fences, side of garages, houses, decks, anything that'll burn should be the 10-foot setback. And then your pleasure pit itself should have a 30-centimeter clearance all the way around on it, which means no vegetation should be coming right up to the fire pit, and there should be a 30-centimeter, 1-foot clearance, whether that be, river rock, dirt. Myself personally, I'm not a big fan of dirt because grass can grow in that dirt, but if we have something else in there, patio stones, decorative rocks, But yes, it is set in the bylaw, the regulations on how to set up your fire pit.
Thank you. Other questions? If not, need a motion for second and third reading. Tracy, would like to make that motion? And this will with the correction for 10.6 as far as the contact information?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And third reading. Anne Marie makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Stuart. And so let's so 11.2 upcoming community events. Anything for that? And, Ariana, in camera. Do we have any in camera today? If not, have we covered all the agenda items? If we have, then I adjourn this meeting. And because we wait for lunch, we can actually go till 2 o'clock. So.